They're not internet people.
I'm doing the crowd. I'm doing the crowd.
Oh. Take two. Hey out there, podcast people! How you doing tonight? All right, that's all. That's all. We're gonna get it hotter than hell in here tonight.
Yeah,
that's not really
Gene coming in with.
It's not a very good Paul Stanley. I apologize for that, but I tried. I gave it my best shot. Hello and welcome to Cranked and Ranked. That is not the best opening. Oh my goodness! I'm just gonna keep this. This is gonna be the intro. Everyone's just gonna have to deal with it because we're doing it live, folks. Well, not really. Anyway, so sorry. Cranked and Ranked is this podcast. If you're listening to this, you probably already know a little bit about us because why would you be listening to Kiss Ranked Part 2? You should be starting with Part 1. So I'm not even going to bother with the introductions except for me, Steven, old head, with me, Eddie Sparxx. Hello, sir.
Hi.
I like that. To the point. So this is Part 2 of our Kiss album ranking, where it's part 2 of 3 because they got a lot of albums. And like I said last time, we're doing all the studio albums, no live albums. That still equals 24 albums of ranking. And today we're going to be ranking the midsection from number 16 down to number 9. And for me, maybe there's really only one album that I might have a little bit of shit talking to do. Because the last episode I did pick on Kiss quite a bit, which it's easy to do. I feel like if you're a genuine Kiss fan, you understand the silliness of it all sometimes.
Yeah.
Some of it is really badass, but some of it is like, come on. and you just roll with it.
There was a comment on the previous one that said something along the lines. I actually responded to it, and I didn't know I wasn't the only person that thought this. Kiss is kind of like the Star Wars of music. Like they have this like over the top universe that they've created, and they've made a lot of great moves and a lot of kind of questionable ones too.
Yeah, that makes sense because if you consider yourself a diehard Star Wars fan, then you have to be okay with the Phantom Menace.
Yeah,
and so. That's kind of like Kiss. It's like I am a huge Kiss fan. I'm perfectly fine with Carnival of Souls. That's the Phantom Menace of the Kiss discography, which we talked about on the last episode. Anyway, so let's just jump right into it because I have a feeling not only are we going to be yucking it up as usual with these albums, but probably at this point from here on out doing a lot of singing because if there's one thing I can say about Kiss, they got a shitload of memorable hooks in most of their music. So let's just jump right into it. As usual, I'm going to let Eddie take the lead here, and let's start off with your number 16. Although last time you did talk about how you may need to switch a couple around. Is that the case here?
Yeah. Considering last time my list wasn't 100% finished, admittedly, yeah, I'm going to swap my number 16 pick with the number 17 pick of last time. I've decided that Dress to Kill is better than Hot in the Shade.
Okay, so we're talking about Hot in the Shade, even though it is now your 17.
Yeah.
But your number 16 is actually Dress to Kill.
Dress to Kill. I had to bring it up one episode.
Okay, so I think if you want to go jump, why don't you start off by talking about why Dress to Kill made it up one notch?
Mainly because I have a good time with Hot in the Shade, but it's not very memorable, and it's got a lot of filler in my opinion. It's long. It's a long album for songs, sorry, that are pretty much polished demos, because to get like more of a raw sound, I'm pretty sure most of them are just polished up demos. I think
that's what I read too. And I think it was also
Yeah.
to save a little bit of money, because I think at that point Kiss wasn't necessarily raking in the dough the way that they had been in the past.
Yeah, and kind of with that, I know it was a response to how glossy the previous album, which Crazy Nights. Mm-hmm. This one has a harder edge, but it's kind of like I would probably call it the hotter than hell of their 80s output, where the production is kind of strange for the style that they're doing. But yeah, in contrast to Hotter Than Hell, the tracks on Hot in the Shade, while in a style I enjoy, they're not nearly as memorable as the rest of their output from this kind of era.
Yeah. So really for you, you just found that Dressed to Kill is a more enjoyable album than Hot in the Shade?
Yeah, pretty much all round.
Yeah.
And it wasn't. Yeah, I know that there are comments that said, "How could you put Dress to Kill all the way down there?" Well, I'm only upping it one place, but I do think this one belongs beneath it. But
okay, well then let's jump into Hot in the Shade then. Let's do your normal track by track, because we haven't talked about Hot in the Shade yet. So let's do it.
Cool. So, starting off with Rise to It, Cinderella, is that you? Yeah. This album has a more stripped back sound, in contrast to the glossy Crazy Nights album that preceded it. Especially considering that these tracks are the original demos that were polished up for the release of the album. You get Betrayed, a kind of pounding 80s hard rock number. Hide Your Heart is catchy with some nice vocalizing do kind of stuff in there. He's gonna do it.
Hey, oh, man, that right there though, those three songs in a row on this album, Rise to It, Betrayed, Hide Your Heart, that is a great opening for an album for me.
It's a strong start. Yeah. I agree. It does have a strong start, but it does tend to get a bit wearing as the album goes on with the amount of tracks on it. Where am I up to? Prisoner of Love taps directly into my love of cliche 80s rock lyrics. Read My Body, love it. It's this kind of rappy strip riff fest.
I love that title, Read My Body.
Hell yeah.
Sounds like a Taylor Dane song or something.
Yeah, you get
or Samantha Fox. There you go. That's a good.
Touch me.
I want to feel your body. That was a good pull. I like that.
Oh man, we'll have to do 80s babes at some point. Yeah, we got Love's a Slap in the Face. There's a lot of vocalizing on this album, and by that I mean a lot of do, nah nah nah, hey kind of things going on.
The kind of shit that I was complaining about last time.
Yeah.
With Burn Bitch Burn.
It's the classic 80s cop out. If you don't have lyrics, just whoa your way out of it.
And that's the weird thing. It's a weird tightrope act, because sometimes na na nas and whoa whoas and stuff make a song really great, and other times it just sounds like you're a lazy fuck when you're writing the song.
I feel like it becomes a problem when it's in most of the songs.
True that.
and there's a lot here. Yeah. And, like I say, it can be seen as a cop-out sometimes, but it's also 80s hair metal. So, I'm not expecting depth here. I'm just
This is 89, correct, when this came out? Yeah, so this is full on the end of the 80s. But, I mean, in 89, that shit was still going strong.
Oh, for sure.
You had some band, I think Warrant's first album came out in 89. It was, and that was popular as fuck. So, that kind of music was at the height of its popularity, even though I guess some people could say that it had already burned out with a lot of people, but I think when it comes to the average music MTV listener, I think it was still going very strong at this point.
Hell, I think personally some of the best quote unquote 80s metal actually came out in like the first few years in the 90s, you know?
There's some great shit there, yeah.
There's definitely from like 89 to 92, there's this like final wave of bands, and there's some great stuff if you dig deep down there. Mm-hmm. But yeah, Forever. Yeah, I love this song. I'm a real softie deep down, so I like a good power ballad, especially.
And that stands up with some of the best power ballads ever for me. Like, it's
for sure.
It's one of those, you know, when the song starts, if you're in the mood for a power ballad, when that starts, you're like, oh yeah,
hell yeah,
this feels nice.
And I love that, especially that Michael Bolton was involved in the writing process of it.
Hell yeah. You know what? I'm a Michael Bolton fan. I celebrate the man's entire catalog.
Hell yeah.
Sorry, that was from Office Space.
Tell me, how am I supposed to live without you?
Man, that was a... Who would have thought we would end up singing a Michael Bolton song on this episode? I guess it makes sense.
We've got Silver Spoon. Silver Spoon gave me 80s Heart vibes at points in kind of the guitars. And then, you know, you've also got like female vocals at the end, and it sounds like a Vixen song, which is pretty cool. You got Cadillac Dreams is this standard 80s rock driving
We're only
track.
halfway through this album.
Yeah, this is the halfway point.
It's too long.
Yeah, for sure. Like, it was at this point I started... It kind of peaks with Forever and then starts coming back down again. Yeah. And Cadillac Dreams, this is just standard 80s rock driving track. Good fun in the moment, but it's not very memorable. But it is worth mentioning that it is one of many late 80s and early 90s glam tracks that features a horn section. And for some reason, like in the late 80s and early 90s, everybody was like, oh shit, we need horns, you know?
It became like these groups were adding not only horns, but also female backup singers was the thing. And I guess it just fleshes out your sound. But horns became a really big fad in the 80s, where even artists that didn't need horns would have them in their live show. Like, I have a live album of Tom Petty's from the 80s, and he has a fucking horn section, and it sounds so out of place, and he's all like, American Girl, and they're all like, and I'm just like, okay, this is a little much.
Damn.
Even the late great Tom Petty fell victim to that trend.
I think the best example of horn sections in this kind of music was Get the Funk Out by Extreme. That's such a good one. But we're talking about Kiss. I'm going to reel it back in.
Yeah, we'll get to Extreme at some point.
Hell yeah. You get King of Hearts. This, again, it's kind of a standard 80s hard rock kind of thing. It's not really standing out. The street giveth and the street taketh away.
I love that title.
It's got a good time feel and a good chorus and a killer title, you know. And You Love Me to Hate You. Now, while I'm a big fan of this style of music, and the chorus is something taken straight from the Eddie Sparxx How to Make Excellent 80s Hard Rock Handbook, this album at this point is long.
Coming out next summer in book and audiobook form.
Oh, shit. I need to get... damn it, you've advertised it now. I need to make it. Damn. But yeah, that coupled with the production, it does get a little fatiguing. Well, quite, very fatiguing by this point. What, like, how many tracks in are we? Like, this could have...
12?
Yeah, the album could have ended like 2 tracks ago. And
at this point in the album, every time I've listened to it, it starts to become background music. It's really hard to stay engaged with this record.
Yeah, in actual fact, I actually listened to it in 2 sittings. I did side A and then side B, because by the end of the first side, I was kind of like, I want to give this a fair shot, and I'm going to come back to it with my criticisms, but I want to make sure that I'm not just crapping on its runtime the whole way. But yeah, you get somewhere between heaven and hell. It's just pedaling that bass straight through this Gene-led rocker. Now we get to Little Caesar, which has Eric Carr on vocals, which is cool.
Yeah.
And it's a strip riff too, that gains it points. And then finally you get Boomerang, which, to its credit, is a shreddy, ripping and roaring track and a good way to end an album. But, you know, overall, this album could have been like 5 tracks shorter easily.
Yeah, its biggest drawback is that it's bloated.
Yeah. Bloated and kind of underproduced, in my opinion, for the style.
Yeah, the production doesn't bother me as much. So if you had stuck with your original ranking, we would be matching up here at the beginning of this episode, but we're not, because you had Hot in the Shade as number 17 now, and I have Hot in the Shade as number 16. So we're kind of matching, but we're not, because we're just talking about it one after the other.
I'd count it. It's like, as long as it's like what it's one place.
If you're keeping score at home, you get a half point
Yeah.
to that. So hold on, I'm looking at my notes. I have all these notes. Hot in the Shade. So 1989, this album comes out. And important to note, this is the last full album with Eric Carr on drums.
Rest in peace.
Because rest in peace. He would end up dying of cancer or something. He had a tumor or something. It was a brain. I was going to say head tumor. Fuck, I don't know. I'm not a doctor.
I think it was on his heart. I think it was
Oh, shit, really?
Yeah, it was on his heart.
Anyway, but he was a great drummer, and this is his last full album. I do hear a little bit of a step back production wise from Crazy Nights, not only with the glossy production, but also just the songwriting. They tried to be a little more rockin' with this album.
Yeah.
Honestly, like the singles off of this, where I think the singles were just Rise to It and Hide Your Heart and Forever. 3 very strong singles in my opinion. The funny thing about Hide Your Heart is it was originally a Bonnie Tyler song.
Wow.
But if what I read about it was correct, it was written by Paul Stanley along with I think Desmond Child, and then instead of Kiss doing it, they gave it to her, to Bonnie Tyler, and then Kiss decided to do it, and then I think maybe the same year Ace Frehley did it on his album called Trouble Walkin'.
No way.
So, which makes no sense, because I'm like, Ace Frehley wasn't even involved in the writing of this song, but he decided to also do Hide Your Heart. And so if you're ever bored and you want to hear 3 different versions of Hide Your Heart, just look all those up, because they're out there for you to listen to. But I like the Kiss version. I think Kiss pretty much nailed it. And then the big thing with this album for me, we already talked about it, is that it's bloated, and there's I feel like while none of the songs are bad in my opinion, some of it just feels a little more like filler than other ones do. Like almost like they had all these songs and they demoed all these songs, so they said, well, fuck it, since we're just going to go with the rough versions and we're going to polish them, let's just throw every song we have on there, instead of, I guess, what would have normally happened, which is you demo 15 tracks and then you pare it down to the best 10 and do studio quality versions of them.
Yeah.
But I guess if you have it, put it out there. I mean, that's another one of those things. I feel like if you're a crazy fanatical Kiss fan, you probably want there to be 15 song Kiss albums. And so I'm not going to fault them for that, really. But I really do think they could have left a few off. But overall, I would say this is it's a solid album. They still got, co-writers everywhere all over this album, which is fine. But just the quality of songs is not there for 100% of the album. There's too many tracks that like if they come up random, if I'm shuffling all of my music on Apple Music and, You Love Me to Hate You comes up, I'm probably going to skip it and move on to a different song.
Yeah.
But other than that, I think it's an album that I like listening to it, but I mostly just like I said, I like the first 3 tracks a lot. I like Forever. It's an amazing ballad. So it's got a lot of strong points in my opinion. And I feel like for the 1980s story of Kiss, it's a nice way to wrap it up.
Yeah.
So that's why it didn't make the bottom half of my list. That's why it's right here, dead last in the middle at number, well, what was it, 16 we're at? So yeah, we don't need to talk.
There's a song title in that, Dead Last in the Middle. Hell yeah.
So yeah, so that's my, we don't need to talk anymore about Hot in the Shade. Let's go ahead and move on to your number 15.
Okay, so this is one that you mentioned last episode.
Okay.
And I've gone for 1984's Animalize.
All right.
So upon listening to it and all of their other 80s output, I'm with you on the not as memorable as other albums. It just so happened to be more concise and better produced, to my ears at least, than Hot in the Shade. And that's what bumped it up. But I do like this album. We're in the territory of like to love, and have been since round about the last couple of on our previous episode. But
Yeah.
without further ado, I digress. Let's just go straight into it. I've Had Enough. Into the Fire is a full on. it's a full on 80s metal track. That is, to me, Ozzy or Dio could have done that. It's it just has that 80s metal sound. Heaven's on Fire. It's 80s big hair arena poodle rock at its finest.
Yeah.
Burn Bitch Burn is the type of song you drag race to, the kickstart my heart of the album, but I
with some woos.
yeah, some ooh, ooh going on. Get All You Can Take. It's fun, full on hair metal. At this point, it's a totally different band. There's still kind of traces on it on like Creatures of the Night. It was still in their makeup era and whatnot. But by this point, especially following Lick It Up, they'd gone full blown into this completely different sound. Lonely the Hunter keeps that fun vibe going on. Under the Gun. If I had a quid for every 80s metal song called Under the Gun, I'd be filthy fucking rich. Yeah, it's one of those titles where it's like every band had a song called that. It's the same as our In the Night analogy from last episode,
Yep.
All you had to do, or the classic Something in High Heels.
Which we have here too.
Oh, man. Like I said, Thrills in the Night. It's an interesting one. It has all the elements of 80s glam that I love, but the lack of a snare in the chorus is one of the most interesting sonic choices I think I've heard from a band from this era.
Yeah.
Because he's just like, doom, doom, in the chorus. Eric Carr's not playing a snare drum in that. And it feels quite tribal in a way. It's kind of like, it kind of fits like the kind of raw animal energy of this whole thing. While the City Sleeps, powerful 80s metal goodness, and then you finally get Murder in High Heels, which is no surprise to me that it's a fucking strip riff. It's and overall it's a fun album, but again, not nearly as memorable as some of their other 80s work. And so that is my take on Animalize.
Cool. Yeah. I like the way that things like this go, because I feel like you say some positive things about these albums that I think are important. Like you point out some things and I'm like, yeah, he's got a point. So I really do think that between the two of us, we give these albums the respect they deserve.
Yeah.
So I'm going to go back for my number 15 and talk about an album that we talked about last time. My number 15 is Music from the Elder.
Hey.
From 1981? Yeah, 1981. Yeah. So I do have to say right off the bat, I love this album. So we're now in a territory where I love all the rest of the albums that I'm going to be talking about. Music from the Elder, I enjoy it so much I can't even explain it to you. It's the first album with Eric Carr on drums, and I understand why people hate on this album. It makes sense to me, but that does not stop me from enjoying it. And so I guess maybe the way that I enjoy this album is the same way that I enjoy Kiss Meets the Phantom of the Park.
Yeah.
There's like an unintentional cheesiness. So I guess for Kiss, this isn't what they intended. I don't
just a boy. It's
yes,
so good.
It is. So I don't think they intended it to be campy, but it is, and I love that. So however they feel about that, it doesn't matter what their intentions were. The way it translates to me is utter enjoyableness in an album. And I do, like I said last time, I believe we talked about like Carnival of Souls and how that feels like a band desperate and trying to do something different to maintain relevance or popularity. In the case of this, there is a little bit of that, but I feel like this feels more like something Kiss would do. Because Kiss had already tried to do a movie, that had already done 4 solo albums and live albums. That it felt natural that they should do some sort of a concept album because they're already a huge fucking production to begin with. So why not do an album that's like a little movie or a rock opera, if you will? So it doesn't bother me. It doesn't feel like they're just grasping for whatever trend they can grab in order to keep themselves relevant. It just seems like they just tried something completely different. And unfortunately for them, it didn't work. But I also think I said this last time. If some other band had made this album, I think people would be talking about it in a much kinder light.
Yeah.
So I don't really have a lot more to add because we talked a lot about this album last time. But if you don't know music from The Elder, if you're not a big Kiss fan, this might be an album that you enjoy because it's very not Kiss. But if you just love that sort of late 70s, early 80s oddities that exist, and because everyone was on a lot of cocaine, I just then you're going to enjoy music from The Elder. And so, but unfortunately, we are ranking Kiss's discography, which has a whole lot of really enjoyable or just completely badass albums. So even though I love music from The Elder, it still has to be here at number 15 in the mid section. So there you go.
Right on. I will say, upon since our last episode, I have grown an appreciation for that album. I'm still going to stick to my ranking on that one, but I agree. There is a certain campiness to it that it's a different mood, but it is cool to hear him do something like that.
Yeah, and honestly, even though they're ranked higher, if you're listening in order and you listen to Dynasty followed by Unmasked, and then you get here, it's kind of a breath of fresh air, really.
Yeah.
So yeah, I could talk. We could do a whole podcast on music from The Elder because I just think it's the whole story of it is fascinating, and the reception behind it, and then the legacy of the album. It's just an interesting album overall for me.
I find that some of the most polarizing albums are often the most interesting because it's like, sure, I could watch this documentary about, Master of Puppets, but I know everything about Master of Puppets because it's been talked about so many times and I'm a massive Metallica fan. Yeah. But, that's what made Saint Anger or Some Kind of Monster so interesting to watch because it was such a shit show. But
yeah, I remember I went to go see Some Kind of Monster in the theater, and I didn't like Saint Anger at the time. But I was so fascinated by it. I'm like, they did a fucking documentary about this. I'm going.
Yeah.
And then, of course, it's one of my favorite documentaries ever made.
That's the thing. I'm thankful for Saint Anger existing just so that we could get Some Kind of Monster.
Yeah.
Like, if that had to exist as a vehicle for that masterpiece to exist,
With some of the most quotable lines of any documentary ever. I feel like we're talking about Kiss, and how do we always end up on Metallica?
because they left the fucking band.
All right, we're getting back on the Kiss highway
Hell yeah.
on the highway to, I was gonna say highway to hell, but that's AC/DC. Never mind.
It's the highway to Tangent City.
Yeah, that's true.
Cool. So for my number 14, I've got here Revenge from 1992.
Whoa. I
Now-
expected this to be a little bit higher up in your list, but okay, this is cool.
That's the thing. So did I. You know, approaching this now. We're in full-on love territory now.
Yeah,
I love everything here on in. So this is the beginning of 14 albums that I would get an almost equal amount of enjoyment out of, depending on my mood. Revenge, unfortunately, had to take a back seat a little bit and kind of sits kind of halfway down the ranking. So, yeah. I will say Unholy is probably one of my top 10 Kiss songs.
Yeah.
Because that is a killer song. Like a serious return to form.
Co-written by Vinnie Vincent.
Yeah, there's like 3 songs on here co-written by Vinnie Vincent, aren't there?
I believe so. So it's interesting that they had a falling out and then he came back into the fold, albeit as a co-writer.
Yeah. Yeah, like his tenure with the band is a weird one, and I'm sure we'll
His career is a weird one.
yeah. Like we'll get to it, but we'll probably talk about it on like Lick It Up or Creatures of the Night. But yeah, you know, Unholy is the heaviest and hardest song they'd done at this point. And if you exclude Carnival of Souls, I think it is the heaviest Kiss song. You know,
I think it's probably the thing that made this album, because I believe that was the first single released from this album. Oh, I guess they did God Gave Rock and Roll to You prior to that, but I think everyone hearing Unholy, I think it gave this album a boost where people were like, oh, Kiss can still do some rockin' stuff, and so I feel like even starting the album off, it's a really smart move.
For sure. And in a way, I kind of feel like this album kind of bookends the decade of the 80s metal era of Kiss. So kind of beginning with Creatures of the Night, and then 10 years later in 1992, it's kind of come full circle where they did the really glossy thing, they stripped their sound back, and we land back at the bare bones heavy metal sound.
Yeah.
And Unholy, killer way to open it. Take it off. This feels like Hot in the Shade with more effort put into it. And the bridge also has an extreme vibe to it. Like in the vocals, I could definitely hear like kind of a Gary Sharon and Nuno Betancourt kind of thing going on in there. Tough Love, really groovy and catchy. Spit, snarling Gene track, badass. Yeah. God gave rock and roll to you. That's a lighters in the air. I think
I know sometimes things can get rough, and I know sometimes life can be a drag, but people, we have been given a gift. We have been given a road, and that road's name is rock and roll.
I love when he goes on those banter rants in songs. There's one on fucking Lick It Up as well. The whole song is just kind of that.
Are you talking about I am cool, I am the breeze?
Yeah.
We're gonna get there.
Hell yeah. Then we get Domino. I've got a man-sized predicament. And it's a big one.
Or something like that.
It I don't know how they like this.
That's the thing, is it and Domino's a good example of this. I guess Spit's probably one too. They sound so tight as a band on this album.
Yeah.
it's just, I mean, even the songs that are a little bit weaker songwriting wise, just the overall vibe of the album, it's like a reminder that like, these dudes were a kick-ass band. And so I don't know. I love that aspect of this album.
I feel like if you put, Bon Scott or Brian Johnson over the top of this, it would just be an AC/DC song, Domino.
Yeah,
and,
I think that's what I was just doing. I literally just did an AC/DC riff for Domino.
It's fun, though. It's hard to argue with it when that riff really kicks in. Gene doing his kind of talking low like this. Yeah.
I think the riff is...
Hell yeah. That's a fun drinking game for this episode. I've just realized I've probably said hell yeah about like 50 times. I'm in the hell yeah zone.
I think you say hell yeah all the time. I think that's if I was going to put something on your tombstone, it would just say
hell yeah,
lies Eddie Sparxx, hell yeah. And mine would say, here lies old head. So yeah, there you go.
Awesome. Yeah, I'm going to have that on my headstone easily. Hell yeah. It's just going to be like the horns coming out of the ground and it's going to say hell yeah.
You got to be careful. They're going to think you're a fan of the band Hell Yeah. And nobody wants that.
Oh.
No, I'm just kidding.
Oh, damn.
I'm just playing.
Throwing shade. We're throwing shade over here. But yeah, I've got Heart of Chrome. Great song. Thou Shalt Not, Gene, there's a lot of great Gene moments on this album.
Yeah.
Tearing it up once more, every time I
look at you,
even if you do have like a harder album, you got to have a ballad in there cuz you got to get the chicks, dude. You need a ballad.
Also it's just a little bit of you chill for a minute.
Yeah.
Like I almost feel like that's what Slayer was doing wrong all their career. Is that there should have been a ballad in the middle of Rain and Blood, and it would made it. I would have loved the album even more if it would just been like all these really fast, crazy songs in the middle. It's just like, and then let's stop for a minute and talk about love, and I'd just be like, hell yeah, man. It just makes all the other parts seem heavier, and it's just like, oh my god, this album's massive.
I think you've given me an idea. I'm gonna set aside some time this year, and I'm gonna write 9 really heavy songs, and then just throw the sappiest Beth style love ballad right in the fucking middle that has no good reason to be there. The whole album's just a really elaborate troll, but
the audience for that would be pretty limited, but I would be in that audience.
Oh hell yeah. Oh, there it is again. It's becoming like a Tourette's like twitch. I'm probably gonna have to see someone about it. But,
it's just there's those human qualities that we can't do anything about. We just have to embrace them and move on because for some reason I remember when, this had to have been like 10 years ago maybe, and I remember at the job that I had, I was constantly walking around and talking to my boss and getting orders and stuff, and for some reason, I would be talking to him about something, and I was constantly pointing with my pinky. I'd be like, here's what's going on with this. And then the other thing I noticed I would do is that he would tell me to do something, and I'd be like, alrighty, and I'd walk off. And I was like, why do I say alrighty all the fucking time? So there's light at the end of the tunnel because I no longer point with my pinky and say alrighty. So you just got to give yourself 10 years, and then you will move on to another catchphrase.
I suppose it's more applicable than just saying later, dude, to everything.
That's true. But later, dude, who would have thought that something so simple would be the ending that we need for every episode?
Definitely, it's just simple things like that. Short but sweet, nice and effective.
Yeah, agreed.
Sounded like one of those Brackets songs. It's like short and sweet. Very effective. You
got to do that too. When you do one of your song titles has to be that. But do it backwards like Kiss did, where the song title is actually called "Very Effective," and then the parentheses is short and sweet.
I just wanna. That's a great.
I got a body built for. Oh, I can't sing that. Why am I even trying?
I was thinking to myself, It sounds, the vocal melody is pretty much Summertime Blues. If you listen to it, it's pretty much exactly the same melody, but I don't care. It's a cool melody. And then finally we get Car Jam from 1981, which is a touching addition as a tribute to the late Eric Carr, who sadly passed away from cancer before the release of this record. And I think it was his audition tape. Was it?
It may have been. An interesting tidbit, if you didn't know, though, the riff and everything from Car Jam actually ended up on a Fraley's Comet song on the first Fraley's Comet album, which was 45 years before this. So maybe it was an early Eric Carr thing. So that's, interesting. I like that they put it on here just as a little tribute, because I think he plays on God Gave Rock and Roll to You Too, but he also does vocals on that as well.
Yeah.
But I think that the rest of the drumming is Eric, what's his name? Eric Singer.
Yeah.
The other Eric.
Ironically called Singer, and he's the drummer.
He's the drummer. And then we got Paul Drummer on guitar and vocals. All right, anyway, that was the dumbest joke I've ever done. All right, where were we? You just finished up Revenge. Anything else to say about Revenge?
It's the beginning of the love section of my ranking, basically. Everything here on in is pretty much consistently enjoyable across the board, in my opinion.
Awesome. For my number 14, we're actually going to take it back, not as far as I was before, but we're going to take it back to the beginning of my relationship with Kiss, which if you remembered last time when I talked about it, the first Kiss album that I ever heard was Crazy Nights from 1987. And it's weird that this is the first Kiss album I heard, because some people would probably consider this the worst Kiss album, but
they're wrong.
I know. I really like it. And you made a really good point last time where you were talking about how Crazy Nights almost feels like it's an 80s montage soundtrack that you could have put to any 80s movie. And I think that's what makes it so great, is that it is unflinchingly 80s in every aspect possible. The production is like super glossy. It's got these real hard-on-sleeve cheeseball choruses and vocals. And it's just, the best way to put it is just 80s pop rock via Kiss.
Yeah.
And it's a Paul Stanley heavy album, which from what we've read about it, it was because Gene Simmons was busy doing other things like movies. And so Paul Stanley did a whole bunch of songwriting. And honestly, that's what I like about this album, because I honestly feel that this vocally is Paul Stanley's best album. Yeah. I love how he sounds on this. He really shows off how great of a singer he is, which I like that. But I feel like this period, it may have been this tour or maybe a tour prior to this, where the fact that Paul Stanley is a good singer led to one of my least favorite things that Kiss ever did in their live shows. And that was, in between two songs, Paul Stanley would talk to the crowd and he would do this. Repeat after me. Yeah. And I'd just be like, oh my God, no, don't do that again. And I think it's because he felt such confidence as a vocalist, as he should have. But it was so, like, maybe if I was in the crowd, it would be different. But watching it as a recorded, concert, I'm just like, because it goes on for a long time.
Yeah.
He doesn't do just one. He does like 12. And one of them just starts like, wow, wow. And by the end, he's like, and everyone in the crowd. And I'm just like, I'm sorry that I made those noises, people. You did not sign up for that. Paul Stanley sounds way better than that. I'm going to give him that. But I feel like Yeah, I feel like it's things like this album where he really got to show off how good of a singer he was. And on top of that, when it comes to Crazy Nights, if you didn't already know, Bruce Kulick is a fucking shredder.
Oh, yeah.
Dude ruled on guitar. Well, rules on guitar. I don't know why he didn't come back into the fold with Kiss. I'm sure there are reasons, but he's a great guitar player. And overall, this is just a super fun album, even though it has some of the cheesiest Kiss songs ever. I think in the same way that I talk about music for the Elder, from the Elder, that's what I enjoy about this. Because you got, I think the song My Way may be the cheesiest Kiss song in existence.
Yeah.
Just the, I'm gonna talk like I talk, walk like I walk. It sounds like you said, it's a rock music made for an 80s, coming of age film.
Yeah.
And that's what it is. And then, honestly, there are, still co-writers all over this album. But in this particular case, even though there are some songs where there's iffiness in the songwriting, and then we've got your favorite thing where song number 10 is Turn on the Night and song number 11 is Thief in the Night. I really do think that overall this is, when it comes to the glossy 80s era of Kiss, this is the most solid album that they did. I really do think that as an album, if you're into it at song number 1, you will still be into it at song number 11. It's just super fun. And I guess maybe also in hindsight, because everyone enjoys the cheesiness of the 80s. And so this album gained that quality. Whereas I think if I was, like in high school or older when it came out, I might have talked a lot of shit about this album. But the fact that I heard it when I was 9, I thought it was pretty cool. And I also really, for some reason, really like the album cover.
Yeah, I do too. That kind of just broken mirror kind of thing.
Yeah, broken mirror. I don't know, something about it. You can flip it around and look at it in different, and it's always the right way up because it's got the Kiss and the name in each corner.
I love the back where Paul Stanley is just showing off his rug of chest hair.
And that he's wearing a G-string,
yeah,
or something like that. Or a thong, I guess would be more appropriate. What he's wearing, and it's literally a picture of him saying, like, "Look at all my chest hair." And if you didn't think I was already sexy, I'm also wearing a thong.
It's like I love all of those. Like, it's almost like a totally straight big dick energy move, but it's also like done in a very flamboyant way. It's the same as that like Kiss Exposed interview where he's just laying on that bed surrounded by women looking at him with total adoration.
To be completely honest, that phrase, if you really want to take Kiss's catalog and just put an all-encompassing phrase over it, you could just say big dick energy. Because I think it's literally from album 1 all the way through the end, even though now they're big old dicks. But, it's still there. It's never gone away.
It ain't mileage, it's experience.
That's true. So I got nothing bad to say about this album, but I guess like music from the Elder, if somebody said this album was really bad, I'd be like, yeah, I guess, depending on what you're looking for. But when it comes to this era, I think this is it's a quintessential 80s rock album, in my opinion.
As a lover of all things 80s cheese, it's a high ranker for me. I won't give away where, but yeah.
I have a feeling we won't talk about it on this episode.
Yeah. It's safe to assume it's pretty high, but
well, there you go. That's my number 14, Crazy Nights.
Apologies to all the 70s purists.
You know what? I think we're gonna make everybody happy, which is really what we're aiming to do. We want everybody to enjoy themselves here,
for sure. So my number 13, I've gone for Hotter Than Hell.
All right.
So this
1974.
Yeah, like the second album, yeah, the second one, yeah.
Not only their second album, but their second album in 1 year.
Yeah, man. Like Kiss were a powerhouse for putting albums out because I think they put out at least one album every year, doubling up and even doing 4 solo albums 1 year consistently up until about like the mid 80s, and then it became like every 2 years. And
for the 70s, you could say, in early 80s, you could say that was a necessity. Like I'm pretty sure the record label hounded them to do more shit. We talked about this, I think, when we talked about the Judas Priest discography, where I think sometimes that pressure and that momentum helps bands create really great albums.
Yeah.
And so whether or not albums are rushed, that's the worst thing when people comment on albums like, that album was clearly rushed. I'm like, why? It's good. You read an article where they talked about how it was rushed, and so you're taking that on as some sort of negative. I mean, it doesn't matter. There are bands that spend 10 years making albums and they fucking suck. So so get out of my face with that shit. All right, Eddie, go ahead.
Okay, right on. So, this album's production is often talked about, and I like the way it sounds. Some call it muddy. I just think it sounds meaty. My only criticism is the snare drum. The snare drum can get...
I'm 100% with you.
The snare drum is the only thing that, depending what I'm listening to it on, it can sound pretty piercing. If I can listen to it on something that I can kind of change the EQ a little bit on, like a big-ass stereo, fine with it. Headphones...
It always made me think of somebody took a snare drum and instead of using a drumstick... They're hitting it with a dildo. I don't know. Something. It has a very like fleshy sort of sound. It's just very weird. But they weren't the only band. There's other albums from this era that have weird snare sounds, and I don't know what they were going for necessarily, which is interesting because other albums from this era sound fucking amazing. But once again, I guess this was rushed.
The album before it sounded like way clearer, like strangely. It's probably a good thing that their first album didn't sound like this because, it might have.
I think some people think this album's better than the first album. So I mean, I guess it doesn't matter.
From a heaviness point of view, I totally agree because it does have a little bit more in common with like the likes of Black Sabbath, guitar tone wise, and things like that, which was also big around the early 70s. But Got to Choose is a slow, plodding opener. It's not as strong an opener as Strutter, in my opinion, but still a damn. We have a. Do you disagree?
No, I was saying I was agreeing with you that Strutter is a way better opening song than Got to Choose.
I was going to say like Got to Choose is fun, but Parasite, on the other hand, is a fantastic song.
That should have started the album. Imagine that. You put the needle down. I mean, that's it.
Yeah. It's such a fantastic song. Such a great riff and chorus. Like,
Ace
Parasite, baby. Parasite. Ooh. It's so cool. Going Blind is a ballad, but it's kind of a dark sounding ballad. It doesn't have like it's not like a reason to live uplifting kind of thing. It's quite dark and mysterious sounding.
I mean to be fair, it's another Gene Simmons song about him wanting to date an underage girl, but still.
Yeah, true.
But at least he had the forethought or foresight, one of those words.
Foresight,
to keep where that line in the song where he says, "I'm 93 and you're 16." So I'm like, okay, he's exaggerating it a bit, so it doesn't make it quite as weird. It's not full on creepy Gene. It's just a little taste.
Yeah, Christine 16 is a whole other level of that. We'll get to it.
Yeah, well, we will.
Yeah, we've got Hotter Than Hell. Anthem of a song. The bridge riff is also fucking phenomenal.
Great song.
Let Me Go Rock and Roll is another killer tune. All the Way is catchy as hell. Watching You is this heavy blueser. Love Me Some of That. There's a Hendrix swagger to this one. mainline Peter Criss fronted rocker. It's good. This is a good fun album. It's just I feel like the production I docked it a little bit just for that snare sound because it tends to get pretty fatiguing if you don't have like the right audio set up because that constant like kind of there right in the center of the mix kind of lobotomizes you after a while, you know. But then where am I? Coming Home, fun, happy sounding track, and Strange Ways, a heavy.
That's another Ace Frehley riff right there.
Oh, man, it's so good. Gene Simmons, like on these heavy tracks, it's a great way to close it out. So yeah, that is my number 13. It's Hotter Than Hell. It's got some killer tunes on it, and I think, to be honest, to me, the more definitive versions of some of these songs are on Alive. But
okay, yeah, I can see that.
But you know, this album still deserves its respect, and I think, you know, like I say, with the right kind of mood and setup, the snare bothers me less depending where I am. But
yeah, I agree. Like it just looking at song titles and thinking of songs, I'm like, yeah, it's stacked with great songs. But once you put it on, it's just, there's something about the production just drags it down, and it's unfortunate because it's way better an album than the production allows it to be.
And I like the way the guitars sound. I think it's just the drums. I think it's that one snare in the mix that just fucked it. Like, yeah, it's unfortunate, but hey ho, we got some great music out of it. So
hell yeah,
that's the important thing to remember.
All right, so moving on to my number 13, I'm going to take it from the 70s into the 80s. I don't know why I said it like that. It's because I'm hanging out with you too much. I say 80s.
You're just going to drop T altogether in a minute. It's just going to be a non-existent letter.
Hell yeah. I just love the way it sounds. It sounds it's one of those things where I feel I understand how people can go and live in another country and start to adapt a little bit of the accent, because when you're around people that talk that way, you find yourself accidentally saying things with either inflections or weird pronunciations or whatever. So I have a feeling if I moved to England and give me a month,
wouldn't take long.
No, I'm going to be having a spot of tea and things like that. So anyway, number 13 for me is the beginning of the makeup-less era of Kiss, Lick It Up from 1983.
Oh, it's only right now, Lick It Up.
Hell yeah. And so first thing out of the gate I got to say about Lick It Up, this is a way better album than people treat it. Like it's... Yeah, I think it gets some flack, I guess, because Lick It Up's kind of cheesy and maybe I think it's a good example of getting to peek behind the curtain when you get to see Kiss without their makeup and you're like, oh no, can we go back to we didn't need this. So I think there's a little bit of that behind this, but as an album. So not only is there no makeup, album cover, like that's another one of my favorite Kiss album covers. It's just them standing there, but it's the first time you see them with no makeup on, so it's kind of cool.
Yeah.
And also there's no co-writers on this album. I guess you could say Vinnie Vincent comes on board, and so he's writing with them now, but he was a member of the band at this point. And so the fact that all of a sudden, after 4 albums, I believe, maybe it was 3, I don't know, where they had a whole lot of co-writing going on, they were able to just knock out these 10 badass songs just with themselves. And I think that's a testament to how good this version of the band was. Paul Stanley, Gene Simmons, Eric Carr, Vinnie Vincent. And so it's honestly pretty heavy. Like it's got some real heavy moments on it, and it's got some of my favorite Gene Simmons vocal moments because he starts to show off his range. Yeah, like he can sing pretty high and still sound pretty damn good. And then, really, I know I said before people think "Lick It Up" is a cheesy song. "Lick It Up" is a fucking classic. It is. It is a non-skipper for me. Like "Lick It Up" is just as fun today as it was the first time I heard it. I don't know how many years ago I heard "Lick It Up" for the first time, but when I was a kid.
And as far as I can remember, I think it's on the second GTA Vice City game.
Oh, hey, there you go. We have to mention Grand Theft Auto. I mean Grand Theft Auto on every episode of Cranked and Ranked because it's in our contract, folks. We are getting paid millions by who is it? Rockstar Games.
Rockstar Games, yeah.
Yeah, just so you know, we're rolling in dough. I just bought a Porsche.
Hell yeah.
So anyway, so speaking of Porsches, "Lick It Up" is I love "Lick It Up," and it was a big deal when it came out. Just like I said, because it was Kiss coming out of their makeup, I guess, or whatever. And I guess the first time they did it was on MTV. There's like a classic clip of them.
I watched it today.
Oh yeah, they do a dissolve from the makeup version of them into the non-makeup version, and it is frightening.
Yeah, it's like weirdly like somber as well because like you're seeing it happen and it's like, oh, is Vinny mad at me? It's like seeing a photo of a parent like dressed up on like your birthday and it dissolves away and they're looking at you with their arms crossed. You've done something to disappoint me, son. Like
I think it's because they're like, we can't be all smiley and shit because we're gonna look ridiculous. So
ironically, Gene was the one cracking the humor out because he's quite serious in interviews and things. But like he was the only one that did the like tongue out thing. But
for "Lick It Up," I like I say with other albums, I think I said it with "Crazy Nights." These are not all 100% killer songs. There's some weaker moments here, but just like "Crazy Nights," it is a solid 10-song album where I enjoy all of it, even with its shortcomings, which I could name a few. I mean, "On the Eighth Day" is kind of a lame. It's like they had a lyric and they couldn't quite have it fit into the stanza or whatever of the song. So it's like, "On the eighth day, God created rock and roll." Like it just keeps going. Like, oh, we have to say rock and roll at the end of it. Where does it go? It just goes into the next part, whatever. So it always seemed to me like they had the title and the chorus before they wrote the song, and they're like, just make it fit in there somehow. And that's also a really cheesy, like on the eighth day God created rock and roll. Okay, wonderful. How many other people had already said that prior to Kiss making this song? Anyway, but it's so fun. And then you've got like "Dance All Over Your Face" by Gene Simmons. And every time I hear this song, I go, Gene, what do you really want to do all over their faces? Because I know it is not dancing, sir. And then, so I'm just, these are more just funny moments, but I have to point them out. So we talked about it already on All Hell's Breaking Loose with Paul Stanley, like, he looks me up and he looks me down. Who be this and who be that or whatever.
Why you gotta talk like that?
Yeah. And then he ends up by going, I am cool. I am the breeze. Haven't you heard? There's a new revolution. And I'm like, okay. This is not a revolution, dudes, but okay.
Everything was a revolution to 80s metal bands.
That is true. That is true. You know what? I think that's what the people in America recently, they should have been doing. They should have shown up to the Capitol building and played All Hell's Breaking Loose by Kiss and then just gone home. And you would have made your point because it's a revolution. Anyway, so I'm sorry, I didn't mean to get political there.
And I'd probably have a lot more respect for them if they just turned up and played a bunch of Kiss songs and then fucked back off.
That's true. But none of them are Kiss fans anymore because Paul Stanley talks shit about politics in his Twitter feed. So he's alienated some people. Anyway, on to this album. One more. Probably my favorite moment on the album, and it's once again creepy Uncle Gene. Just like that part, I believe it's on Fits Like a Glove, where he goes, when I go through you, it's just like a hot knife through butter. And that's what I'm trying to say, that he straddles that line where sometimes his shit is so funny and other times it's like, Gene, please stop, please. But I think that's, for me, that's on the funnier side of things.
Isn't there a song? Isn't there a song where he like wants to put his log in your fireplace or something?
Hell yes.
Yeah.
What song is that?
I'm trying to think. I'm trying to think which one it is. There's some killer metaphors in Kiss songs, man. No subtlety at all.
Oh man. He also used to say that, again, interviews, he'd be like, hey, she had an opening and I had a stiff proposition.
That's so fucking good.
Anyway, we're not really talking about Lick It Up anymore. I think Lick It Up's great. It's got some cool heavy rockers on it. It's got some fun songs on it. It's really a nice sort of stepping one foot into the 80s Kiss sound, because prior to this was Creatures of the Night, which we are not going to talk about on this episode for me. But it's just nice because it's still got some heavy shit, but it kind of gives you an idea of where you expect Kiss to go. And I like it. It's a fucking solid album. My number 14. What number is this? I don't know what number this is.
13. Yeah.
My number 13 is Lick It Up.
Cool. So my number 12 is Rock and Roll Over.
Okay. All right. I feel okay.
There are some wild card choices in my list, dude.
This is if you couldn't gather from my expression, this is not in this episode for me.
So I'm just gonna jump straight in.
Do it.
I Want You, awesome song. Got a big time, it's a big time.
When you said "I want you," I immediately thought you were gonna say "to want me," and I'm like, no, that's Cheap Trick, sir.
Oh man, this is an awesome song though, and it's kind of misleading too.
In the morning I raise my head and I'm thinking of days gone by, and the thing I want out of life is I want you. I mean, that is a great album opener, because it's just, oh god, it's good. Anyway, go ahead, sorry.
That song has a full-on heavy metal feel to it. That to me is a classic metal song, by 70s standards, of course. Take Me Again, Kiss doing that fun rock vibe these 70s records possess. Calling Dr. Love, hell yeah, Gene, fuck yeah. Ladies' Room, more Gene being a naughty little demon. Baby Driver is this bouncy, offbeat driving rocker. Love 'Em and Leave 'Em, this pounding rock and roller. Mr. Speed, fun track, although Mr. Speed might translate to something a little premature, but you do you, Paul, I guess.
Yeah. Why would you want the ladies to call you Mr. Speed? You want a man with a slow hand. Didn't you ever hear that song?
Is that Conway Twitty?
Fuck, I think. No, isn't that a woman that sings that song?
You want a man with a slow hand.
Oh, was it? I don't know shit about country music, so I'm sorry, I don't know.
I mean, country artists have a tendency to do you'll get 10 to 5 different versions of the same song because someone wrote it and it was given to everybody.
I guess that's true. Either way, slow hand. That's what the ladies want. They don't want Mr. Speed, but okay.
Yeah. See You in Your Dreams is cheeky rocker, and it's actually one we've covered because Gene re-recorded it for a solo album.
Yep.
Famously with Katie Segal on vocals.
Mm-hmm.
Or backup vocals. Hard Luck Woman is one of Peter Criss's signature tunes.
I'm not going to start singing that song because I will sing every word to that. So that is like a karaoke song for me. I haven't done karaoke in many years, but Hard Luck Woman that song comes on and I just want to go to another room so I can loudly sing it to myself because I'm just I love that song. It's so good.
Yeah. It's a nice change of pace too, because a lot of this album has some real rocking moments, and then you get
Yeah.
Peter Criss coming out with this kind of Rod Stewart kind of voice, and it's a nice change of pace hearing something a little softer before you get finally Making Love, which reminds me of Judas Priest a little bit, like the 70s era of Judas Priest.
Except for their song wouldn't be called Making Love. Although they did have some songs bordering on that, but yeah.
Yeah. It does remind me of theirs would probably be something like Rockin' Hard or something.
Oh God, yes.
yeah.
You nailed it there, buddy. Rockin' hard all night long.
But it's one of their good time hard rockers, but still keeping that Kiss vibe heavily present. And as I said, the albums that I love started pretty much with Revenge, and it just keeps going. So this to me is just a fucking party at this point. So
hell yeah.
Yeah, so it might be controversial to some people to put rock and roll over that far down, but just know I love whatever is above it so much, So that is that's my number 12.
All right, man, we are moving along. You're moving so fast that I didn't get a chance to sing like half of those songs, which is I know what everybody's listening for.
This is your chance to do that entire rendition of Hard Luck Woman that you so desire to do.
Oh God,
Do it.
I'm going to get to that album. Maybe I'll save that for the next episode because Rock and Roll Over is not in this episode for me. But moving on to my number 12. This might be an unpopular placing because I think it's probably kind of high for some people. But I guess you haven't mentioned this album either at this point. My number 12 is the album Unmasked from 1980. And this album really sounds like it's from 1980. Like that's the one thing I can say about Unmasked is it's got that weird step over from we're still a little bit rocking, we're still shaking the disco off of us, but all the rock bands were writing pop songs, and I think that Unmasked is like that. It's a character of that era of the 80s. Which, funny enough, it's called Unmasked. Oops, I'm gonna say that again. It was called Unmasked. But they actually were not unmasked for this album.
Yeah.
In the little comics, I like the album cover because it's a comic strip. But at the end of it, Kiss take off their masks and they just have their makeup on underneath the mask. So they fooled you. You thought they were going to be unmasked, but they weren't. They were double masked, I guess. Anyway, so I don't think that this album as a whole, to me, doesn't differ that much from Dynasty. I feel like it's got similar qualities to it. It's just got a lot of Kiss flirting with pop music, with songs like Shandy, which it's very catchy music. I mean, if you're okay with some pop songs, then this era of Kiss is for you because there's a lot of that, a lot of poppy elements to their music and less rockin' elements, although there's still some rockin' elements. But I really I enjoy this album. It's an album that I go back to a lot. And I don't really know why, because if somebody was going to say, hey, can you make me a 20 song mix of Kiss to get me into Kiss, sorry. I would not put any song from this album, I don't think. So it's odd that it's an album that I enjoy so much. And I can see why it was a failure at the time, mostly because I don't feel like with what other rock bands were doing in 1980, I don't think it's unique enough. It doesn't stand out enough. It's not bombastic in the way that Kiss had gained a lot of their following. But I guess, they were pushing things forward. They were like, hey, we've already become, the most popular band in America and in other countries as well. Why don't we try to push the envelope and see how far we can take this with writing, hit songs. So I don't fault them for that at all. But I do, when I listen to this album, Music from the Elder makes sense about how they went there
Yeah.
from this, because like I said, it's very similar to Dynasty, and in my opinion, not as good as Dynasty, but still very good. But I think this is probably when Kiss was struggling. They started to really struggle with their fan base, and so instead of going back and doing, that's the thing, I got to give them credit. Instead of following this album up with something like Creatures of the Night, going back to being really rockin', they went the completely other way and did a concept album that completely failed.
Yeah.
But I love that they did that.
It's a very bold move.
Yeah, and so there's not a whole lot to talk about with Unmasked, except for the fact that I just think it's a real solid album of its time. And there's a few standout tracks. I love Torpedo Girl.
Yeah.
Which once again, Ace Frehley gets on board with his songwriting.
There's a strong Ace presence on this album vocally.
Yeah, because he's on "Talk to Me," "Two Sides of the Coin." I think that's it, and "Torpedo Girl," and those are all great songs. But "Torpedo Girl," it's got an odd quality to it, and I think that's why Ace Frehley is my favorite Kiss member, because a lot of times the songs that he would write, not just in Kiss, but even in his solo stuff occasionally, he would always end up writing riffs that aren't necessarily complicated, but they approach things in a way that you weren't necessarily expecting.
Yeah.
And I like that about him. And I feel a kinship with him, because I think he's not a virtuoso. He's not an amazing guitar player. He kind of just has his vibe and he does his thing. And that's how I am as a guitar player. I have never wanted to be a shredder or a guy that can solo all crazy. That's never been what I wanted. I wanted to kind of have my own thing and have it come across in my guitar playing without having to be flashy. And while I do think at times Ace, could be flashy if you wanted to, but I really enjoy his kind of odd takes on rock riffs. And so anyway, that's talking about Torpedo Girl there. But yeah, this album ends up being my number 12 just because I think it's really solid, and I think it's aged well. It still sounds dated, but in a really sort of lovable way. So my number 12 is Unmasked.
It's really cool and unique because it feels like it doesn't necessarily belong to either era. It's just kind of this. It's I don't want to say like an alternate universe, but it's like a transition point between their late 70s and early 80s albums are really, it's a really interesting era of the band because, obviously Peter Criss and later Ace Frehley would depart, and you would get this weird alternate incarnation of the makeup era with, instead of a cat and a spaceman, they've got a fox and an Egyptian guy. But
which is funny though, because you talk about Peter Criss, because he's credited on Unmasked, but it's actually Anton Fig that plays the drums. But if any album sounded like an album that I think Peter Criss would want to make, it's Unmasked. It sounds like he should have been the drummer on this album, because if you listen to his solo album, this era of Kiss, it sounds like he would have been totally into it. But, he had drug and alcohol issues, which is what I gathered was the big problem.
There was also a car accident he was in, which injured him. So he was kind of out of commission as well on that kind of front.
Okay. But I guess that makes sense that they they include him in the artwork and listed him in the credits. But we talked about that last time, about how the falling apart of that version of the band really sucks. But it is what it is. So we can move on.
Cool. Just before we do though, you and I are both huge Ace Frehley fans. Ace is both of our favorite member of the band, and I took it upon myself. I thought one Ace solo album isn't enough. I know he's done like Frehley's Comet and stuff like that, but I wanted like a Kiss style just Ace album. So I went on Spotify, and I'll tell you the track listing just for a little bit of reference. I've got and this is fully chronological. I might go and rearrange them and see how that goes. And but for listeners at home, if you just want an Ace Frehley experience that's not just a solo album, Shock Me, Rocket Ride, 2000 Man, Hard Times, Save Your Love, Talk to Me, Two Sides of the Coin, Torpedo Girl, Dark Light, Into the Void, You Wanted the Best.
Yes. So not You Wanted the Best. It should have been Into the Void. Oh wait, no, you did do Into the Void. You wanted does he just because he sings on You Wanted the Best?
Yeah, I thought it was a nice way to cap it off. You know, he does sing on it, but yeah.
That is a nice ending. So if we needed more examples of why you and I are a match made in heaven, I had already made that mix like 10 years ago.
Nice.
Like there was a period of time where I really reconnected with a lot of Kiss stuff. It's probably going on more than 10 years ago, but it was around the time that I had my first iPod. So I don't know, this may have been like 2006 or 7 or something, but I ended up putting together that actual mix without the last song you had on there in that order. And I used to listen to that all the time, and I'd be like, here, I get another Ace Frehley solo album. So literally we did exactly the same thing. Isn't that adorable? It's like we gave each other the same Christmas present.
Awesome. What are we on now? We're on number 11. Yeah? Cool. So my number 11 might shock you. It's not Love Gun, but I just
I was going to say it better not shock me, sir.
Yeah. It might though. And
okay.
I actually thought it was going to be a lot higher, and I thought it would be in the next episode, but because I just love the 10 above it so much, and even I'm kind of bummed that it's at this position, I had to go for Creatures of the Night.
Oh, that hurts.
It hurt me.
I felt it. I felt it in my soul.
It hurt me too.
All of the love that we just had with each other with our Ace Frehley mixes. It's like something. You know what? That isn't that life. You rise to a high, and then you have to get knocked down a peg or two. Anyway, I'm kidding. Clearly, I love Creatures of the Night.
So this is where the rock and metal news guy picks up on it, and he's like, "Gee, God damn it." Steve has existential crisis during Cranked and Ranked episode.
All right, well, let's talk about Creatures of the Night. So I see, honestly, though, I do like it when this happens because it gives us the opportunity to talk about these albums twice in 2 different episodes. So let's jump into Creatures of the Night from 1982.
So yeah, Creatures of the Night, title track opens it. Nice. This foray into a 80s metal direction. The thing is, like, the interesting thing about like the 4 albums in a row, it's like they did a disco album, they did a power pop album, they did a prog album, and then they just went full on Dokken levels of 80s metal. You know?
Yeah.
Like, what a jump. What a career path. You know, there's a real zigzag here going style to style.
It is an entertaining discography, which is why this is so much fun.
Yeah, Saint and Sinner, good time 80s metal. Keep Me Coming. You know, this album really acts as a transitional body of work because they still have the makeup, but they have that strong 80s metal sound at this point that they would continue for quite some time. Rock and Roll Hell.
Co-written by
Bryan
Adams.
Oh, shit. Rock and Roll Hell?
Yep.
Damn. Like, get me out of this rock and roll hell. It's so fucking good. That could be a contender for my favorite song on the album. That one.
It's a great song.
Danger is this big, intense rocker. I love it loud, you know. Anthem.
So if you go back a second for Danger totally gives me the vibes of the song that would play in a movie when we're gearing up for the final battle. Like the final battle isn't happening yet, but everyone's getting their guns together and stuff.
Yeah,
and
it's just a montage of loading and stuff and gearing up.
Lifting a few weights just to get themselves pumped up. And it's like you're about to get to the climax. And it's a cinematic sounding song. I love it.
Yeah, it's definitely any 80s metal song with danger in it has to go over a montage. You know.
Yeah.
It's so good. I Love It Loud, like I say, is the anthem of the album. That fucking thing is a sing-along track perfected.
Mm-hmm.
I Still Love You is this dark, heavy ballad. You know, even as a ballad on the album, it's still got that dark, heavy feel.
I'll say this again on the next episode too, but just because I feel it so much. I Still Love You is, to me, one of the best breakup songs ever written and performed. It is.
Wow.
It sounds like that. Whenever you have a bad breakup, and you want the woman back, this song sounds like that. It's got the desperation and the passion, and at the same time, it's almost like, you know, like when you're real sad, you will make these outbursts that normally you wouldn't make.
Yeah.
Like you're overly dramatic. And that's what I Still Love You sounds like to me. It is like I'm just like Paul Stanley nailed it with this song.
Yeah, for sure. I think you nailed it with the word desperation. You know, that is exactly what you want from this type of song, and they nailed it. They got it right on the money.
Yeah, I love that song.
Yeah, you get Killer, this fun upbeat 80s driving rocker, and then. Better watch out, cause I'm a war machine. I've been working on my Gene recently, and I've managed to get that going. You know, oh man, it's really fun to do, but you end up really hoarse by the end of it. The other day, I got to work, and I'd blown out my voice on the way there, and I was just like, Hey guys, how you doing? Yeah, because I was just in the car blasting this song.
Yeah, but, it sucks when you want a raspier voice than you have.
Yeah,
because I've always wanted to have a super raspy voice. I've always been like, I want to sound like, you know, Peter Criss or Rod Stewart or somebody like that.
Yeah, after a while, like if I'm like, you know, cutting vocals for something, and I do some warm ups, and because I'm not a trained singer by any means, but I have done like singing in bands and things like that.
You've got a great. So you guys out there probably haven't heard a lot of his singing, but I've heard a little bit of it, and he's got quite a range on him. Like
I've got range. I just need to learn how to control it.
It's still pretty damn good. Like I wouldn't talk too much shit about you.
Yeah, I've got an EP in the works, people. It's come together. It's coming together.
Oh yeah.
But yeah, I always think of Beavis and Butthead when I hear War Machine, because there's a scene in it where I think they chainsaw off one of their fingers, and they're like, you better watch out, cause I'm a war machine. It's a great fucking album, you know, and it is. It made the top half. It made the top half of my list, but my list surprised even me, because I thought that, you know, I knew it was going to be difficult for me to have a list that made sense for me, because I love 70s Kiss and I love 80s Kiss, and it's almost like ranking two bands at the same time.
Yeah, it is pretty difficult, but I mean, that is something that I found, is that it really made me really have to pull
be
apart
objective.
the things that I love about them, alongside with how good are these really in the context of the music that was going on and the other music that Kiss did. It really does shine a light on the ones that maybe you really enjoy but aren't quite as good. But I don't agree with your ranking at all here, sir.
I surprised myself, believe me.
So my number 11, I'm not moving very far away. I'm actually moving back one album. My number 11 is Dynasty from 1979. And I guess it would make sense if you're listening to what I was saying prior, which was this is not that much different of an album from Unmasked. I just think it's a slightly better album. Now, you said this earlier, and it's another one of those things that gets stuck in my craw when people say it. This is not a disco album.
Yeah.
It is. It has a disco song on it.
Yeah.
And it's a great song. It's,
maybe two.
As we found out last time, it is the #1 streamed Kiss song. I was made for loving you.
Which is really surprising. You would think it would be I Want to Rock and Roll All Night.
You know why? I'm willing to bet that song would be #1 if there wasn't half of the people going for the album version and half of the people going for the live version of Rock and Roll All Night.
Yeah.
So that's probably split in half, whereas everyone just goes for the Dynasty version of I Was Made for Loving You. Because I guess that's not on a live album, is it? I don't think it is.
I don't know. It might be on a live 3, but I don't know if they'd have had it in the set at that time. That
seems a little bit out of character for 1992 Kiss.
Yeah.
Because they still did some 80s era songs on that tour, but I don't think they did I Was Made for Loving You. But I might be wrong. I've been wrong many times.
Here's Eddie's on the fly research. It is track 8 on
Look at
Live
that.
3.
And you know what? I admit that I was incorrect, which is a quality that so many people on the internet don't seem to have these days.
Strangely, it's sandwiched between Domino and I Still Love You.
Oh, man. I'm going to go back and listen to a Live 3 again. It's been a while. Anyway.
Yeah, it looks like there's a killer set list on that one.
Yeah. So jumping back in, Dynasty. So I guess you can make arguments for other songs having disco tinges to them. But I Was Made for Loving You is so when everyone says disco album, I'm like, well, if it was a whole album of disco, I would probably look at it very differently than this. But it goes right into 2000 Man, which is a Rolling Stones cover done by Ace Frehley, and it's a really good cover for me. And then, honestly, no bullshit, my favorite song on this album is Sure Know Something, which is such a pop. It's just a full-on pop song, but it is so well written. Like that's the thing, is that I love a good pop song if it's got a hook and it takes me on kind of a little journey and isn't simplified enough to be stupid. There's some, even today, there's music out there done in the weird, overblown, compressed, auto-tuned world of pop music. Some of those songs, I'll still hear them and go, God, this is a fucking good song. Yeah. And Sure Know Something is a song like that for me. And really, I think this is another one of those albums that I think it's better than it gets credit for. And also, Anton Fig plays drums on most of this album. It is not Peter Criss on this album, except for, I believe, Dirty Livin' is the only song that Peter Criss plays drums on. And this is the beginning of the co-writer era of Kiss. Although I think half the songs are just by the band members themselves, but I think there's another half that they got some co-writers. And I understand that. Like, that's something, I know I point that out a lot, but it's only because I like to give credit for bands when they write great songs on their own. But I also don't fault them for co-writing with other people if they create great songs. Yeah. So it's not really me talking shit. It's just me pointing out that there's two different types of things where a band does something on their own or a band does something with help. And really, this is just like Unmasked, where I really enjoy this album. I just feel like it's a little more cohesive. It seems a little more focused than Unmasked. And even though it's got some songs, even Save Your Love by Ace Frehley, the backing vocals on that just are too goofy for me. The Save Your Love, save it. Just like they couldn't come up with anything else to say there than just save it 2 more times. Anyway, but those are just nitpicking, really. But Hard Times is a fucking killer Ace Frehley song. Oh my
God, yeah, it could be my favorite. It's definitely one of my favorite Ace Frehleys.
Yeah, it's just, I mean, there's something about Ace Frehley's delivery. It's almost like he was just a dude. He, like, rock and roll was in his blood, and he didn't have to try very hard. They all feel like real Like he just had this song and he wrote it in 5 minutes and played it in another 5 minutes, and then that was the thing, and it came out great. I mean,
That's
I could be
something-
wrong. He could be more laborious with his songs than we know, but it feels that way.
That's something I love about 70s Kiss is the versatility of each of the members, because they all had very distinct vocal styles. Paul is just your virtuoso, incredibly good frontman. Gene has that real raspy thing, and he's got killer range too. But he generally stays in this kind of like down here, yeah, kind of like pre James Hetfield kind of thing. But and then you get Peter Criss that has the nice raspy, but also really nice, more laid back sound to his voice. And then you get Ace Frehley, who's just, like you said, is just this rock and roll dude who just, he didn't need training. He just has it in his blood. It's just in him. Yeah.
And honestly, now that you bring that up, it's so interesting the number of parallels that you can draw between Kiss and the Beatles, especially when you get to this point when all four members are singing songs, and just the fact that they were also a massively popular group. I don't think Kiss hit the level the Beatles did. Maybe they did at a time, but
I think in the US they had incredible success in the US.
And it's just the fact that and I'm sure that was the plan. I have a feeling that they had Beatle-esque dreams from day one. And it's great. I love that. I love bands where everybody sings. That's why, that's another thing, like to bring it into a modern day that's, not really related. Mastodon is a band that I love, and they reached an era in their music where all of a sudden 3 out of the 4 members now sing. Yeah. And really, if you want to talk about like some vocal grunts and stuff, the other guitar player does a few things too. But I just love that. I don't know why I love variety. Like sometimes, one vocalist is good enough to carry everything, but I just love it when you have 3 people bringing these different colors into the music. And so once you get to, Love Gun, Unmasked, and Dynasty, I love the fact that we got those different takes, because it just makes for a way more enjoyable album. Even though it may not be as good songwriting wise, it's still got so much going for it. So
I love Toto for the same reason. They've got a shitload of other singers in the band.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so Dynasty makes it here at number 11 on my list.
Awesome. So my number 10.
Mm-hmm.
I've gone
You can't surprise me anymore at this point.
So my number 10, I've gone for probably their image-wise their most glammed up era.
Okay.
So I'm gonna let you have a guess.
Are we talking about Asylum?
We are talking about Asylum.
Cool.
The thing I just before I get into the music, I just want to mention the stylist for the band at the time was on some really good cocaine. Right?
Who wasn't on some really good cocaine at that point?
But the stage get-ups on this, somehow, I don't know how you top the fucking leopard print catsuit that Eric Carr wore on stage during the Animalize tour. But yet they managed to come up with this fusion of like royalty and exercise gear.
Yeah.
And it's this glorious mixture of pomp and ceremony and 80s aerobics colors. And it is just, visually, it's an extremely entertaining era to just watch the videos.
And this is 1985 when Jazzercise was at its peak in America.
Oh, for
Probably
sure.
worldwide.
Like in all of like the Asylum videos, Paul Stanley is either wearing he's wearing both colors, but like different variations of it. Bright fluorescent pink and bright fluorescent lime green with a bunch of sparkly stuff on it too. And I know it's superficial, but it just speaks to my 80s cheese brain. And it's like, that's fucking brilliant. That is amazing, you know? So, but I will say the quality on Asylum is way higher than Animalize, and that's only like one album apart. And it could be to do with Bruce Kulick coming in.
Yeah.
Because they had a lineup change from Mark St. John on Animalize and then got Bruce Kulick, who is an incredible shredder. They both are.
Yeah.
But this album to me feels like the album Animalize could have been, because this has pretty much the same sound, but with way more memorable songs.
Yeah, I think that's exactly what I said last time. So we're on the
Yeah.
same boat. Only mine fell much lower in the list.
You know, you get King of the Mountain. It's just big, epic 80s metal opener. Anyway you slice it. It's just drag strip rocker with a tasty amount of reverbed
Yep.
synth tom fills. No, do 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 do. Like love that stuff. Who wants to be lonely? Notice how I'm singing
Who wants
every
to be
one.
with you tonight?
Whoa, whoa. Like,
See, in that case, I'm perfectly okay with the whoas there because it feels right.
yeah, it's dark and mysterious yet fun and bright at the same time. Trial by Fire is mid-pace 80s rock. I'm Alive is just the speed metal track and a damn fun one. Love's a Deadly Weapon, some badass shredding going on that one. Oh, those tears are falling.
Oh, we almost did a harmony there. That was pretty good.
That was badass. It's
You're
one
welcome.
Of their, it's one of their 80s singles, and I love it. And it's such a unique song because it's not a ballad, but it's not like an outright rocker either. It kind of straddles that line between the two.
It's a predecessor to Hide Your Heart. It's got a similar vibe.
Yeah. Secretly Cruel is like an upbeat 80s rocker. Radar for Love, stripper riff. And then finally, well, we work all day. It's so all night. It's so fucking fun.
Yep.
This is a really fun album. And for that reason, it's like 5 places ahead of its predecessor. It feels like a response to what didn't work about the previous album. They just went in and fixed all of like the loose ends, and it came together on this one.
Yeah.
So yeah,
I agree with all of that. It's a great record.
I feel like Kiss's albums at points kind of they do like 2 of a similar style, so that you've got Creatures of the Night and Lick It Up. Stylistically, they're very close. Then you get Animalize and Asylum, which are stylistically very close. Obviously, Crazy Nights is kind of the peak of that, and Hot in the Shade is a response to that. And then
Crazy Night stands on its own.
Yeah, Crazy Nights was just kind of a peak of their 80s output.
Yeah.
Like, just with how 80s it sounds. But yeah, Asylum is a kick-ass record, dude. And
Agreed.
that's why it came in at number 10.
Cool. So I'm moving back from the 80s for my number 10. Yeah, number 10. And this was one I feel probably how you felt with Creatures of the Night with this album, because I thought that I might rank this album higher, but like you said, at this point we're just dealing with such great albums that it's something has to get knocked down for some reason. And so my number 10 is Hotter Than Hell from 1974. And really, Eddie already talked about this and said all the things that I think need to be said. The drum sound is awful. I think overall the production's pretty weak on this, but it's unfortunate because it's got so many great songs, and it's like 8 months after their debut album comes out, this one comes out. Like, it was pretty fast. And like I said before, something being rushed doesn't necessarily mean it's bad. And in this case, that's true. I think this album isn't as good as its predecessor, but it is fucking strong. It's literally talking about, comparing, an album that's a 9.5 next to one that's a 10. It's just, it's really small to me with these these albums going forward. And honestly, another big thing that knocks this one down is I think that Got to Choose is kind of a weak opener when compared to any Kiss album. Like it's a good song, but it's a weird like it's almost mid tempo at the lower end of mid, where it's almost slow. Like it's like you put it on, you're like, is this on the right speed? Because it's like a dun, dun, digga, dun, 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 and you're just like, oh, maybe this is supposed to be faster. But it's a weird way to open an album. But once again, you go right into Parasite, which years later would be covered by Anthrax very well, I might add.
Hey.
And then of course you got Hotter Than Hell, and just so many great songs on this album. There's a couple that I think feel a little bit unfinished. Like I almost feel like some of them, the strength of the riffs, like they were like, this is a good riff. And so, but they didn't really spend as much time as they needed to fleshing out the lyrics or the vocals. It's like, like I like Watching You a lot, but the very first chorus, the lyrics are just like, you don't really know what to do. And I'm just like, that's not very. You didn't have to dig too deep for those lyrics. You don't really know what to do. At times don't we all not really know what to do? Anyway, but this is classic Kiss. This is an album that it just has this classic status. I really like the album cover too. The weird sort of, is it Japanese kind of thing going on?
I love the cover. It's so weirdly cool.
Yeah, I feel like it's very different than what a lot of bands were doing in '74. I might be wrong, but it sticks out to me as something unique. Yeah. And honestly, I think this album, the big strength of this album is the fact that it has so many good songs that would still just remain in their set list. And as you said, there's good versions of these on Alive, which we're not ranking, but And even then, from what we know about Alive, there's a whole lot of studio recording going on in that album anyway. So it's like second studio recordings. But I really do think this album is great. It just feels like some of it was a little bit unfinished, and that's me being very picky here. Because I was Mr. Rushed doesn't necessarily mean bad, but in this case, like those qualities are the things that drag this down further than other albums. Even though it's got some fucking classic bangers on it, but it had to go somewhere, and so my number 10 is Hotter Than Hell.
Cool. So I guess I'm on my final pick of this episode.
Yep.
Cool. So my number 9 Kiss album is Lick It Up.
All right, that's a nice way to end it here.
Yeah, it's this album to me. I do still feel dirty about putting Creatures in the Night so low, but I feel like this. So you should, Eddie. I'm
not going to argue with you on that.
Yeah, I just feel like this album feels a bit more confident than obviously the previous one, because this one, they know we can even take the makeup off now and just prove to people that, we're a good band just beyond all of the stage get up and stuff.
Yeah.
And, they still had they still dressed up because it was the 80s, but not what they were known for. So it was a bold move on their part to, remove the makeup. And like you said with the artwork, it's just them. It's just them naturally being them with a white background, and that in itself is cool because it's something you haven't seen from them yet. So but the Exciter is like they've shed the makeup, but not the aggression they had on the previous album. In fact, they've kind of ramped it up. It's like you said, this is a really heavy album beyond the title track.
Do you think that they knew that there was already a song called Exciter? Because that seems like a title that's not a word everybody uses. So it's not something where I can go, oh, of course there's more than one song called Exciter, because that's a word that's used a whole lot. It's not.
Yeah.
In my opinion, there's even though I got some flack for talking some shit about Judas Priest, the Judas Priest song Exciter is way better than this song.
Yeah, there's a Judas Priest song. There's a band called Exciter
that too.
around this time, you know,
Yeah.
the late 80s, late 70s, early 80s. And it's kind of like an era in metal where everybody was like, Exciter. And then no one ever did it again. You know? But yeah, Not for the Innocent sounds mean.
Yeah.
You know, Gene doing what he does best. You know, I suppose in a way that proves, hey, man, I'm still the demon. You know, I'm now amongst you. I look like one of you.
I feel like he was the one member that the makeup removal really didn't take away from his overall vibe. Like he still seemed pretty menacing, and there was still creepy Gene in full effect, no matter what.
which brings me to Lick It Up. In the video for Lick It Up, he's still looking at you like, I've got bad things planned for you. And
Yeah, because it's so weird how, like, in the era of music videos, even today, the norm is you're singing the song and you're keeping eye contact with the camera.
Yeah.
But some people, keeping eye contact with the camera feels you're being violated in some way, and that's.
I love the fact though that like during all this, like he does this.
Oh
like,
yeah,
thumbs up. Yeah, and but like
he does do a thumbs up at some point.
Yeah.
I love that. Now that he was,
yeah, there's a GIF. It was like a meme. I saw it on Everything Glam Metal. That's a hilarious Facebook page. Go check that out. But there was a post on it, and it said, sleep paralysis, but the demon at the end of your bed is Gene Simmons in the Lick It Up video. And the gif of it left me terrified because I was like, I'd shit myself if I saw that at the end of my bed.
Yeah.
You know?
I always liked how in the like the video has a weird. Is it supposed to be like a dystopian vibe going on in that video? Because I love at the end they're at some sort of party and they're all drinking like blue liquid or something that's got steam coming off of it or something. It's very Star Trek.
Yeah, it's like they're walking down this like post-apocalyptic road, dressed in, you know, your typical 80s glam metal gear, but with like a shitload of really attractive girls just climbing out of manholes and stuff like that in the ground, you know? And it's like, dude,
I love the phrase. I love the term manhole. I don't know why. It's just that's just one that like when whoever started using that first, I'm all like, let's think of a different one. Maybe don't call it a manhole because it seems weird.
It's not an attractive word, is it?
No, it doesn't. It doesn't make me think of a way to access a sewer. Well, no, it does give me maybe that makes it's totally appropriate. You access the sewer through the manhole. All right, got it. Never mind.
Still though, there's babes down there.
But there's babes in the manhole sometimes.
It's a journey totally worth it. But
it's it's a very modern way to look at sexuality. Sometimes you're going to have chicks in your manhole.
Oh man, they were ahead of their time with the whole pegging phenomenon.
They were 100%.
Oh man, you got Young and Wasted. It is another Mean Gene number. Vinnie Vincent's guitar playing is phenomenal 80s shred goodness.
Yeah, that guy. So some people talk shit about Vinnie Vincent because he seems like he's kind of a one note. He's an amazing guitar player that does similar things a lot, but I don't care. I still just love hearing it. Like some people are just so wild and crazy with their solos and stuff that I love. I don't know. I love what it brings to the song, and I think he was an asset to the band at this point, songwriting wise as well.
Like even though he did look like a soccer mom, like he's he's a badass talented dude. Can't take that away from him.
Agreed.
He had the most like short-lived makeup as well, didn't he? Because he was like, he had that like wizard thing for like a few gigs between Creatures of the Night and Lick It Up, which was like a year.
Oh yeah, I don't even know.
Yeah.
I don't even know if. Okay, no, I remember what his makeup looked like now. Okay, yeah,
it's
it
got
was
like
probably the short
gold cross thing. Yeah,
yeah, that was probably the shortest lived of anybody's makeup because the only other one was Eric Carr, and Eric Carr
Eric Carr was the Fox, yeah.
Yeah, he had that going for a little bit.
Yeah. Yeah, it's cool. But yeah, it's something that makes me wonder, like, if Mark St. John or Bruce Kulick, because I think they're the only two to not have ever had, like, makeup in the band. Like, I think
so, yeah.
I think someone theorized one of them would have been a dog. And, like, it's strange. I think someone out there has taken it upon themselves to design their own, like, solo album painting, like the Kiss solo albums from '78. It's pretty cool. But yeah, alternate reality stuff.
Yeah.
Where was I? I was at Gimme More is upbeat speed rock at its finest. All Hell's Breaking Loose. Here we go. Like it's like almost rappy, but it also just feels like Paul Stanley incorporating his stage banter into his songwriting.
Yeah,
which is cool. It's a nice change of pace because I don't think he's done it before or since, with like the notable exception of "God Gave Rock and Roll to You," like the rant in that one.
I mean, there may be others, but none come to mind right now. But this is probably my favorite of the of the Paul rants.
Speaking of rants in songs, I love the one in "You Can't Bring Me Down" by Suicidal Tendencies.
That's one of my favorites ever. Just the I'd rather feel like shit than be full of shit. Yeah, I love that so much.
You're offended? Well, maybe you need to be offended. Oh,
here's my apology. And one last thing. Fuck you. Man, we're going to get to Suicidal at some point.
That's going to be awesome. But yeah, where am I? A Million to One. I love dark, mysterious, heavy 80s metal, and this nails it. Mm-hmm. Fits like a glove. Fuck yeah, this album rules. I can definitely break the speed limit to that one.
Yeah.
Dance All Over Your Face, yeah, agreed. Very Gene heavy, and I like that. There's some real heavy bangers here, but you know, subtlety is something Kiss do not partake in. And on the Eighth Day is a badass way to end a badass album. It's just 80s metal done in a fuck yeah way.
That's the good way to put it. Just put that on the description. Look it up. 80s metal done in a fuck yeah way.
Yeah. But yeah, that's my top pick for the middle portion of our discography ranking of Kiss.
Cool. So let's wrap it up with my number 9 and
wrap
it up or lick it up or do whatever you want to do with it. Do it. We are going to wrap it up. My number 9. This, like I said, I'll stop saying this now, but like all these albums I love, and so they had to go somewhere. My number 9 is Revenge from 1992.
Oh yeah,
and I think originally I thought that this album would be down lower, but like it's got so many strong qualities to it that I am not able to deny. It is, to me, it's the last great Kiss album. It ends here for me.
Yeah.
Like we talked about the ones following in the last episode, and even though some of those have things about them that I think are fine or good at times, Revenge to me is the end, and it's a killer end in my opinion. It's just got such great. The production is great. Like I said, the band sounds tight. Whoever it is who produced this album, let me look it really quick. So this was Bob Ezrin. Oh, okay. So Bob Ezrin from the old school Kiss days came back and did them proudly, I guess, if that's the term you use. But because it's the perfect in between of the early 90s where things were starting to get a little bit more focused and stripped down, but it still has a big sound to it. Yeah. So it's. I mean, I guess it sounds like 1992 albums because it
somehow varies from song to song, like sound wise, but also feels incredibly consistent. Like Domino feels really dry.
Yeah, but I think maybe that's a credit to Bob Ezrin because I do think that if you go back to next episode, clearly we'll talk about Destroyer, but that has a similar thing where one song to the next, it could have a very different kind of vibe with production or with just the different instrumentation. And then in this case, it's just different mixing styles, I guess.
Yeah.
But there's so many great songs on here, and for the most part, it's a pretty heavy album. And honestly, it's, you know, if you're looking at the albums that we talked about, like this is the best Kiss album for me since Creatures of the Night. Like I think that this is, like you said, it is a full circle coming back to wrap things up in a really nice, heavy Kiss kind of way.
Yeah.
And it's just thoroughly enjoyable. Unholy, Domino, I just wanna, like all these songs that I still love today, and I think are just real standout tracks.
It's kind of
And-
like it's like a glam sandwich with
I love that. Okay. So now here's your task. So now, whenever you do make a glam album, it's got to be called Glam Sandwich. Only in the middle of the bread, have some sequined, flowy robes and stuff in the middle of the bread, and it'll just be called Glam Sandwich. I love it. I love that so much. Why hasn't somebody done that?
because they're not geniuses like us.
That's true. That is true. See, anyway, so I don't really have a lot more to add because we talked about this album already. I think it is really strong. It is, especially when you're talking about the early '90s, when a lot of bands. I know Kiss wasn't an '80s band, but they had an '80s vibe going on, and a lot of those '80s rock bands in the early '90s, they all seemed like they were trying to figure out where they wanted to go. And some of those bands did albums that were really good, and other ones did albums that were just kind of whatever. And you could tell that their day might be done soon. But with the exception of Kiss, like Kiss is a band that at this point had made it through so much shit, starting in the mid '70s and making it through disco, making it through, I guess, I don't know, new wave type era of stuff, and then the hair metal era, and then coming out on the other end, still showing that, sure, there's some co-writers on this album, but this is a case where it's just fucking tons of killer songs. And like I said, even the ones that aren't quite as well written, the overall vibe of this album carries it no matter what. It is such an enjoyable album, and so it had to be higher up. So it ends up being the number one of the middle of our Kiss ranking. And I don't have a lot more to add. Kiss Revenge is a great record. If you just like driving rock tunes, I think Revenge has something on it for you.
Yeah.
So
Cool.
There we go. That's our middle section of the Kiss ranking. I can't believe we're already at this point. It's just, I've been having too much fun, I think.
Yeah, man. Like, I can't wait for the next episode because that's just going to be an all round, like, love fest nerd out.
Yeah.
Like, I'm looking at my top picks and I'm thinking, I stand by my top 8, but yeah, I stand by my top 8. Yeah.
My top 8 was kind of rough for me because, like I said, the margin between the albums gets so small that you have to start picking at the smallest of things to go, all right, fine. I'm going to make this a negative and then place this album here. And then, so it's interesting, but we're not there yet. You guys are going to have to wait for another week to get our top 8. There we go. Top 8 of the Kiss ranking. So thanks for sticking with us. If you lasted this long, I never know who listens all the way through to the end. So if you did listen this long and you're on YouTube, in the comment section below, type peanut butter platypus. And then we'll know that you're one of the special ones that made it this far. But even if you didn't, I'm thanking you anyway, even though you can't hear it. Before we wrap it up, Eddie, do you have anything to add?
When it came to ranking the albums, especially these like the middle and top of the list, I pretty much went solely off of memorability at that point because I decided like a third of the way into the list that I just love everything, and I was just like, I'm gonna have to figure out some way to decide which ones I prefer, and I think I went for which tunes are more memorable in the end. That's how I've kind of done it.
Yeah.
But
Yeah. So I mean, if we're using the Star Wars analogy here, we've currently been talking about the Force Awakens era of Star Wars movies, and the next time we're going to get to the original trilogy, because
yeah.
although that God, so now that that's been mentioned, I'm like, it's so true, because you have something like Empire Strikes Back, and then you have Return of the Jedi, which still has its really great moments, but also has some cheeseball moments, like many Kiss albums do. So,
how many like main Star Wars albums are? Star Wars albums. Because there's 9, aren't there? 9 main ones with some spin-off ones here and there. Because I would say like you've got like 3 albums per movie, and like I'll work it out. I'll work it out off the podcast, because I might be marginally good at maths, but it wasn't my strongest
that'll
subject.
be your homework assignment for the next episode. Come up with your Star Wars timeline along with the Kiss albums. But
this is where I crack like a massive code. If you listen to all the albums in a certain order and watch all of the Star Wars movies, it unlocks a portal, dude. Like one of those.
Dude, if you start the Phantom Menace right after Paul Stanley goes, "Wah!" they sync up exactly, man. Anyway, so
that's gonna be awesome.
On that note. We're going to bid you adieu. And thank you very much for listening. We'll see you next time for the final installment of the Kiss album ranking. I am Steven, old head. Eddie Sparxx with me. We both thank you so much for joining us. I'm just going to speak for you. You're thanking them.
That's cool. I'm okay with that.
I almost feel like if we ever got to a point where we were making a lot of money doing this kind of podcast, I would hire somebody to do the intros and the outros. So I can just be like, "Take it away, Don Pardo," and then like, and then somebody comes in. "Thanks, Stephen. That's this you have been listening to." It's brought to you by Rice-A-Roni. Anyway, so once again, thank you for listening to Cranked and Ranked. We will see you next time. Eddie, take us out.
Let